Hey everybody, how's it going? Good afternoon. My name is Scott with Lakeland Insights, and here we have with us Kate Lake of My Office and More. And today we're going to be talking about building a business by building relationships, a topic that I'm extremely excited to talk about. Kate and I have had many discussions about this before, and it's going to be fun. So we're going to hit it off today. Kate, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do at My Office and More, what it's all about, kind of everything like that.
Well, I have a unique title of the Chief Connections Officer here at My Office and More.
Awesome.
I'm really interested in finding ways of helping people to connect, to work with each other. My Office and More is a place where you can get an office or a desk space or a meeting room and be able to conduct business. That was the starting point, but what it's really all about is like having LBL in one place where people can get to network together. There's so much power when we have a chance to just relate to each other.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's, again, one of the things that we're going to be talking about is, building those relationships and everything. But why did you decide to go into business for yourself?
Like many other people, I got to the point where my job was getting phased out. The company was being purchased. I had been there a year and a half, and I was going to have to start that process again. I'm a long-term kind of person. I like being a long-term loyal employee, but the job wasn't working out that way. And our dear John Stansel, who had been my professor for my MBA over at Florida Southern, wrote back when I said, okay, keep an eye out for a new job. He said, why are you not starting your own job, your own business? And I was like, well, I wanted to, but I didn't really have an idea. We had some more conversations, and the vision just started coming to me. It became a God project, and I got passionate about it. I decided that this is what I was called to do. I have to say, it's kind of nice, if I'm going to invest all this time working, that it's at least in my business.
Right, exactly.
And there are times when I would like to be an employee again, because there's an awful lot of responsibility that comes. But at the end of the day, it's nice that everything is going into something that I really believe in.
Awesome. And so along with that, you believing in the community and the networking and everything, that's probably got to be one of the big reasons why you did this kind of business, right? This office sharing environment, right? So can you tell us about why is that so important to you, or what have you seen, or why did that stick out to you a lot? Why did you really want to do something like this?
My initial motivation is that I have a passion for business. I'm fascinated. You can have three people with the same business, and they all do it differently.
Yep.
It's amazing to me how it could be a simple lemonade stand, and people will handle it differently. So in my past experience, I once worked in a shared office where there were
really
all
cool.
these other businesses in there.
Yeah.
And I thought, boy, how cool for the administrative team that they got to see how all those other businesses worked.
Yeah.
So that has stayed with me, and that was my original reason. Today, it's changed.
Yeah.
Because I like being in a place where I can help other people.
Yeah.
I have lots of years of experience, and so in various things. So sometimes I might know how to do something differently. Or what's more magical is when we get into conversations, and because of somebody else's experience, bouncing off another person's experience, something brand new shows up.
Yeah.
I get energized by that.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool. It's like, oh, okay, there's a new trail. Let's go down that rabbit trail.
Well, I think that speaks to the whole purpose of LBL and why a lot of us are in this community and in this group is because, we can all better each other, and we're all here to help each other and see each other grow and reach our dreams and our goals and everything. So that's awesome. But let's kind of jump into the topic. Tell me a little bit about this building business by building relationships. What does that really mean to you?
Building relationships, I didn't realize how important every single relationship matters when you start a business and when you run a business. When I was an employee, I would work within a certain constraint. I would think about the people I worked with, my coworkers. I would think about the senior management. I think about the vendors I had to do business with. And sometimes I was involved with customers. When you have your own business, the world is much bigger. You have to think more broadly. And I found out it really matters every day is each relationship matters. Each conversation can lead to something else that you didn't expect. That's where the fun actually comes in, because it's the power in the speaking.
Yeah.
I get fascinated with the internet. The internet is essentially a bunch of computers that are connected together, talking to each other. So when we send an email, it probably hits 10 different computers before it gets to the destination, at least 10. But when you do that, it's just whatever is being sent, whatever gets transmitted. There's nothing really magical about it.
Yeah.
If you think about each of us as being a computer, we get connected when we're talking to each other, when we build relationships. There's magic, because then we get into this interchange with each other, and we get something that we didn't expect. Somebody says something, and it leads us into some other conversation. So you and I were talking at the beginning of this, is that we had a general idea how we were going to make this go.
Right.
But anytime you and I start talking, we just have to assume it's not going to go exactly the way we expected, because you'll say something that will prompt a new thought and will generate something brand new, and to me, that's exciting.
Exactly. And I think that's a really important aspect of, networking and building relationships. Sorry about the sound, guys. I got it fixed, so hopefully it's better. But, when we're in such a digital age that it can be hard to, I think it's great to generally meet people, but when you're starting to build those relationships, you really have to do that in person. And when it really comes down to networking, you really have to do that in person, because, like you said, it's just the way someone says an idea or a tip or something like that. You could have heard it 1,000 times, but the way they said it just really meant something to you and triggered something in your brain to be like, oh yeah, that's actually a great idea. And I've seen that a lot of times in my business. But tell us how you kind of got started. So with your business journey of building my office and more, how did building relationships? How did you get started with that?
It started with LBL actually, and that surprised me. And I'm going to just pause on that as an example of what you just said. And I'm going to bounce off what you just said.
Perfect.
I had this example I think it was last week. I was working with Chris Ann Long and Jasmine. They're helping me with my website. And I sat there and I said, look, I am so stuck about what I'm supposed to write on the About page. Every time I put pen to paper, I get stuck.
Yeah.
And I've read, I looked on the internet, I've got all sorts of ideas as to what should go in there. Jasmine sat there and said exactly the same thing that I had read, but there was something different. When Jasmine said it, she put images in my head, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, I get it, I can do that, I know how to do, and I started writing down ideas that I'll be able to fill in. So that's just a tangible example of what you're talking about. Initially, when I was getting started, it didn't seem to make sense to me that I would get into a business networking group before I had a business.
Okay.
But I was working out of my home. I was working on my business plan, and I was looking at properties as I was getting started. And I was getting very isolated. So I decided, even though I'm a loner by personal trait, is that find me with a good book. I'm off in a corner. I'll be just very content. I can live in another world. Whether it's a TV or a book, I can be very content on my own. And yet I didn't like the isolation, because I'm used to working around others. Being an employee, I usually had at least a few other people around, even if they weren't in the same discipline. I was in the same, I at least was around other people.
Yeah.
So again, my dear friend John Stansel got me introduced to the Lakeland business leaders, and I started going to the breakfasts and lunch a lot of times just because of the topics. I was learning things or getting a new perspective. I remember learning more about how leasing works for equipment, and I needed to know more about that.
Right.
So the topics got me there. I didn't think that I was going to be able to get into relationships because I didn't have anything to offer. I didn't have a business. I wasn't going to hire anybody, so why would anybody want to engage with me? And that's when I learned my mistake. By showing up on a regular basis, and I naturally got into relationships with people, and I found people I really, really like. That's the nice thing about Lakeland Business Leaders. There's a whole bunch of people I really, really like.
That's awesome.
And what I had missed out in my thinking and undervalued was just being me.
Yeah.
What I could bring to the table was just being me, and my experiences and my dreams and my hopes, and people turned out to be just as interested in those things as I was interested learning about them. So one of the first important relationships was with Jared Yates.
Awesome.
Guess what I needed Jared for? He did my logo. And it was through that I could tell, because we had built a relationship and we spent time talking, then I knew that he understood where I was going, and I could see he was getting excited about it.
Right.
So why would I hire anybody else to work on a logo that was going to represent everything I was doing, except for somebody who was sitting right in front of me saying, oh, I love what you're doing, and had you thought about this? And well, when somebody's on board and wants to help you, that is the great beginning of a business relationship.
Right, absolutely. And so you jumped into LBL and started. I think a couple of key pointers there was that you were consistent. You maybe even didn't feel like you had a lot to bring because you didn't have a business, but you brought yourself. And I think a lot of times in business we don't necessarily appreciate the support of others as much as we could, even just for wanting to be with us and support of us and things like that. And so couple key things when it comes to networking. People will associate themselves with people who are giving back, who are positive, just people that you want to be around. And so you want to be someone who's attracting people, and building relationships is the best way to do that. I've also seen in my business that there's a lot of times you may build a relationship and you may have no idea how or when ever if that relationship will ever help you, but then somewhere down the road it does. And so just really, really fascinating ideas there.
Well, and that's how you and I got connected. I think you put it out there that you were interested in meeting with people.
Yep.
And for whatever reason at that point in time, I was like, hey, Scott, let's get together.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I just loved about from the get-go, is that Scott was just as curious about me as I was curious about him. And so I think that's another key piece to relationship building, is you have to be curious about others. You have to be interested in finding things that you can relate to, and then find out more about their experience with it. Because 9 times out of 10, their experience is going to be just a tad bit different. Even if you've gone through a similar experience, it may be similar, probably not the same.
Yeah, exactly. And so what are some other ways that, when you talk about building relationships, we talked about LBL, but what are some other ways or some other avenues or people that you can build a business with? So in business, you have vendors, you have employees, you have clients, you have fellow business owners that you can connect with. How do you, which of those are like most important? Which ones do you focus on the most? What would you say when it comes to building those relationships?
Well, one of the surprises that I found in starting this is that those were the relationships I was looking to build right away. It's the vendors, the customers, employees. And then LBL showed me other business people to business associations. But then there are many other places to look. There's all the government relationships. And I just have to pause here. I have to do a shout out for the city of Lakeland. Well, we're here because I now live downtown, which has just changed my dynamic. I have my office and more is at the corner of Main Street and Tennessee Avenue. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to live 1 block away and off of Kentucky. And so I now am walking through Munn Park on a regular basis. And I was blown away. There were a lot of people here Sunday night for the fireworks.
Oh, yeah.
It was a zoo because we had all the food trucks around Munn Park. And then we had the fireworks down by the lake. And when you start getting thousands and thousands of people down here, and it felt like 100,000 people
Right.
down here,
All of Lakeland.
you know it was a mess when everybody left.
Right.
And the next morning, I came over here early Monday morning, and I was stunned. Everything was clean. You could not tell that we had just had so many people down in this area. So hats off to City of Lakeland for the job they do. It just amazes me all the effort that goes into cleaning things up and making things work for us, particularly after we had just had First Friday on Friday night. These folks are working hard. But that's one of the sets of relationships we have to have. It's wonderful we can get to know our mayor and the city commissioners to make differences. There are things that impact all of our businesses that are going on. The LDDA for the downtown area. There are all these different groups. So those are important relationships.
Yeah.
Our schools, we have some phenomenal schools in the area.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's the colleges and interacting with them for whatever reasons, being able to give back, being able to work with other students. Might be even working with the elementary and high school students, being able to give back there. Those relationships will surprise you the best of all, because they'll come, particularly as students, they'll come at directions that you never anticipated. And that might free your thinking up to say, oh, maybe I could do this. Because the world is changing so fast on us that if we don't keep changing along with it and keep doing something new, we're going to get lost in the noise.
Right.
So we're always reinventing ourselves. There's community associations too.
Tell us a little bit more about those.
That can be anything from homeowners associations. Some of our products might help homeowners be able to better connect with each other. Just finding ways that people interact in a non-business setting may lead into building your own business, because you will find commonality, and then by building the relationship. What about the Kiwanis or the Rotary?
There you go.
You were going to get mad at me. I know my Rotary friends out there were going to be mad if I didn't say that. You're bonding in a non-business setting, even though you share some business relationships. It's more than that.
Yeah.
And I think that deepens our friendships when we're getting to give back to the community, helping solve problems in the community. Those relationships build up so that when somebody's looking to solve a problem, you might not be the person that can solve that immediate problem, but you might know somebody who can help them. Yeah. And at the end of the day, that helps to build relationships a little more. If you get to be the person everybody says, Chris-Ann Long, call Chris-Ann Long. She knows the answer, right? Yeah. We all know to do that. Well, there are other people in our community. Scott's getting to be one of these people where he's gotten to know so many different folks. He probably knows somebody who can help you solve a problem. What a great resource that is. Yeah,
it's exciting, and I know for me, it's awesome to be able to help people in those areas. Not just with what I do as my business, but to really be able to, when someone I know needs some help, give them that resource and help in turn the person that I'm referring. So definitely, great stuff, Kate. Great. Let's talk about customers. What do you focus on when you're building relationships with customers? How do you build relationships with new customers? Tell us a little bit about that.
I was in a sales position back a few decades ago. I went through a lot of classes about how do you approach customers, and it was constantly trying to figure out how to close them. My whole focus was how to get them through all the various thought processes to solve whatever problem they had, but to get them to end up with the solution I was promoting. And I have come to learn lately, over the last few years, that's not a very good way to get long-term business. That might get you to a short-term, and that might work on a car lot where you're just doing something instantaneously. But for a business that's built on relationships, that doesn't work so well. So I've changed my mindset. I go back to my curiosity, and I like to find out about before somebody is a customer or a prospect, they're just a person with a problem.
Mm.
So to me, the first thing you do is to find out what problem are they trying to solve,
Mm-hmm.
and understand that perspective. If you have a product that helps them, that's great. You can start talking that direction. Or it might be somebody that you know that has something that might be able to help them. But it's more about getting to know the person, thinking about who are they, where are they coming from. Sometimes I just ask, why did you ask that question? Or what is it that prompted you? The more questions we can ask of somebody to help them think out loud, you're providing value right then and there. Because a lot of times have you ever found that there are times when you're thinking through something, and then when you say it, it came out a lot differently than it was up here?
Absolutely. Or it just sounds different than how it sounded in your brain. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've actually said that at times. Something comes out, it's like, it sounded a whole lot different in my head than it did when I just said it. Well, when you can be a sounding board for somebody and enable them to be able to talk out and be patient and help them think through, it's not enough just to sit there and go,
Right.
That's not providing a lot of value. But if you ask questions where you're trying to understand their thought process, you're helping them figure out, well, why do I think that way? You're actually providing value to somebody right there by helping them process through an idea. And along the way, you might find out, oh, you know what? I actually have a good solution for that. Let me tell you about, and whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think, man, that's fantastic. A couple key points, asking questions. I think so many times in this world today, we're told things, told what we should have, told what we should buy, what we should do. We're just told, and not many people are asking us, hey, what you want, or what do you want, what is your goal, what are you trying to accomplish, what are you passionate about, what are you excited about? And if you want to help people, you have to get to know those things, because ultimately those are the things that people care about. I think so many times it's easy for us to put on almost a mask, or become like an actor and actress and play this person that we think society wants us to be, when we shouldn't feel like we have to do that. But if we all showed other people that we cared and that we wanted to get to know who they were, that would really help that a lot. But talk about employees. Like, how do you build those relationships with employees and maintain those relationships? Because I think that's something that can be very, very tricky for a lot of business owners. It takes a lot of time, experience, and personal development for yourself to be able to get good at. But okay, you're amazing with building relationships with your employees and with your clients and everyone. But tell us about specifically, how do you do that with your employees?
I used to be really bad about it.
Yeah. It's a good way to learn.
Yeah.
It's a bad way to learn, but
it's rough on the first people.
Right.
I was not somebody that somebody wanted to work for, and I was very fortunate. I had a lady, a dear friend, Jackie, who was patient enough and would tell me when I was being ridiculous, and just worked through and was patient while I learned how to stop being all about me. So much of it, as a boss, I thought it was, this is what I want done. I want you to figure out how to get it done, and I'm going to give you these parameters and just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would forget that they were another person. And they really, if they were an employee in my sphere, 99% of the time, they really wanted to do a good job. They were looking they cared about what they were doing, or else they wouldn't be in that environment. But I wouldn't treat them as if they cared. So when I had this opportunity, I was going to have people working for me in this business. It's a little nerve-wracking at first, because I'm depending on them to be the face of the business on a daily basis. I'm not going to be there watching them all the time. There's no point in having people working for you if you're going to sit there and have them be robots. You might as well get a robot.
Right.
So it means trusting. Well, in order to not micromanage everything and to tell them everything, I had to start by developing a relationship with them where we could trust each other.
Right.
And in doing that, we had to learn how to communicate with each other.
Mm.
So I have two really awesome people who work for me. I'm very fortunate, and they both care a great deal. But it still wasn't easy for them because they had this really tough problem when they first came to work for me.
Yeah, what was that?
Both people showed up. It was just about a year ago, and they never walked into a situation where there wasn't a business yet. They were going to be employees, but there was no structure. They're used to showing up on the first day, and it's like, okay, tell me what my duties are, and what are the procedures, and I'll just go ahead and do those. That didn't happen here because when they showed up, the construction guys were still here, the copier was being delivered, and I looked at them and I said, okay, we've got to figure out, this is what the business is going to be. I don't know how to do it yet, and we got to figure out how to do that. And they looked cross-eyed at me at first because they were like, I don't know how to do that. You're the entrepreneur, not me. Just tell me what to do. So part of what we learned in the process of getting to know each other, Ben and Allison, one of their first tasks, they were just reminding me this the other day. One of their first tasks was to clean the back stairwell because the construction guys were on their way out. That area was just done, but it was filthy and it had to be cleaned up. And my contractor said, oh, they can use the shop vac. Yeah. No problem, then just use that. Well, I've never used the shop vac in my life. They hadn't used the shop vac. How hard could it be as a vacuum cleaner, right? So they went and Ben and Allison were working together to clean things up. The problem was that they were sucking in the dirt and it was going out the back end of the machine.
Oh my God.
Turns out you have to put a filter in. Yep. To be able to keep that up. But the filter comes out when you're working with water. We now understand that, but we had this shared experience where we hadn't a clue at the expense of our pride because Ed was having a good laugh at our expense.
Right.
It was those opportunities to work together that helped us learn that we could be patient with each other, have a laugh together. Humor helped to bind it. None of us took it too seriously.
Right.
And it was building those experiences up and making it so it was safe for us to make mistakes.
Right.
We all could make mistakes. I didn't yell at them. I didn't tell them they were stupid because I couldn't do it either. They weren't being stupid. We just didn't have experience.
Right.
And if we could always remember that when we're working with employees, that sometimes we don't get it right the first time doesn't mean that we can't get it.
Right.
I just assume that because I can do certain things pretty well, why can't I do everything really well?
Yeah.
I just naturally assume, well, then I should be able to do this, and that's where that should gets in the way. That's not true. All those other things, I've done them enough times that I can now do them pretty well.
Right.
Something I haven't. Guess what? We work with Shop Vac really well right now. we got it down. But that came from experience.
Right. Exactly.
And we learned that we could trust each other.
Awesome. And so, so many good nuggets in there. Just fantastic. What are some suggestions you would have? We've kind of talked about this a little bit, but what are some suggestions you would have? Break it down for us on how to build better relationships. So we've talked about business leaders, we've talked about employees and clients, but what are just some tips you have to just focus on to be able to make sure that we're effectively building relationships in a way that matters?
Yeah, I wanted to be able to give people some 5 key areas and to make it a little bit easier to build superior relationships. Begins with an S. So I'm going to give these tips with S words so that we can remember them. So the first one is to share words of belief.
Awesome.
So when I'm talking about, and everything we do in building a relationship, if you've got to work from a place of truth, honesty. But if you can be talking to somebody and see something where you can encourage them by saying, I know you can do it, or show them how, based on the experience, be honest. So, Scott, you are amazing at building relationships because the place that you start from is being interested in the other person.
Yeah.
And so I encourage Scott that way because it's honest and it's specific. Something that he can say, you're not just saying that. Give me an example.
Right.
Well, I can tell him right from the get-go how impressed I was that he was just as interested in me as a person, actually more interested in me as a person and less interested in me as a prospect.
Thank you.
So that's the first one. That would be share words of belief.
Awesome.
Then the next one is sustain. And you can sustain someone with words of hope.
Okay.
We all fight the battle of the mind.
Right.
It's not a day-by-day thing. Sometimes it's an hour by hour. In my case, it's usually minute by minute. One case, yes, I can do it. Oh my gosh, I'm not sure I can do it. And if you happen to come across somebody as you're going through your day, it might be the person who is serving you at a restaurant. It might be just a fellow business person and they're talking about, oh my gosh, this bad thing just happened, or I just had a customer get really annoyed with me and I feel miserable about myself. If you can then at that point feed back into them words of belief where you can, words of hope that you can sustain them with, to encourage them with, to inspire them that, no, that was just a moment in time. Yes, you heard one complaint. What about the 99 compliments that you just got? Don't forget about the 99, and remind them of all the things that we need to get started back again to help them keep that momentum going. That's how you can sustain somebody.
Awesome.
Then you can supply somebody with words of courage. Don't be afraid. You can do it. Fear has a way of getting in the way of all of our lives. That's a common human experience. Fear can get in the way. What we have to remember is not to let fear control our actions.
Right.
You can use fear for your benefit to get you motivated. So there was a half marathon that my friends were running to raise money, and I don't know why I felt that this was a good thing to do, but I said, oh, I will get in there and I will run a half marathon with you. Folks, I don't run.
They were encouraging you.
I think it was peer pressure.
Oh, there you go. Yep. That happens a lot.
Well, and the cause was good. You know, it was to stop human trafficking, to put monies towards an organization that was going to help people to stop being trafficked, and it was really on my heart. Well, fear of failure, fear that I wasn't going to get to the finish line, I found the 13.1 miles, is it? I didn't even forget. Is it 13?
I'm not sure. I'm
I
not
think
a
it is
runner.
13.
So
I think half a marathon is 13.1.
I stay as far away from marathons as possible.
I don't blame you. Really, you were the smart one, but
Right.
I got myself caught up into this cycle. But my ultimate fear that I couldn't get to the end got me to go successively each weekend, where I kept pushing myself to go further and further. And I did finish. I was among the last, but I finished, and that's all that really mattered, because to me, I was afraid of failing. I didn't fail. I have a little medal that proves that I actually got to the end. So you can use fear to motivate you, but it should not control what you do, because if I listened to my fear, I wouldn't have gotten out and even tried. Right. Okay, so we share words of belief, we sustain each other with words of hope, and we supply words of courage to help somebody be able to get through those moments of doubt or fear. And then we can support each other with words of comfort. Awesome. We all go through painful times in our lives. That's part of living. We all try to do everything we can to avoid pain. But there's no joy. You can't appreciate all the good stuff if things aren't breaking.
Right.
It's one of those things that's kind of hard to wrap your brain around. But it's easier to get through the painful times, the hard times, when we link arms with each other and support each other. And one of the things that I am in awe about the Lakeland Business Leaders community is the way that there are some key people in our community that are really good about sustaining those who might be on the fringes and who are hurting the most.
Yeah.
The challenges when illnesses step in, or there's financial hardships, or somebody passes that is close to us.
Mm-hmm.
It's those times when we can reach out and be thinking about others, and sometimes just being there and being willing to listen.
Yeah.
When somebody, give them a chance to go through positive memories.
Mm.
Those are times when you can really build a relationship, because when I know that you helped, you didn't, but I didn't give you the opportunity,
Right.
but if I know that you were there and helped me move,
Right.
and that was a very painful time getting out of my house into the apartment, there's something that's bonding over that.
Yeah.
That builds a relationship. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're there to help somebody through a painful time, that's a great way to build a relationship. And the key at the end, the fifth one that I have to offer is send words of love. If we could, this is where Chris Ann is a great leader, because she constantly is feeding into each one of us. If you give her the opportunity, she will take her heart and she will hand it right to you and give you words of love and encouragement. Another person I think of all the time in this area is Jan Coachman.
Mm-hmm.
She's our appreciation doctor, right? She uses the Send Out Cards product to send words of encouragement and hope and love, and that's what it all comes down to, is she just loves on people.
Yeah.
Whether it's a handwritten note, whether you show up with a soda,
Right.
you know, sometimes I saw this just happen recently, where somebody was just not in the best of places, and the other person showed up with a caffeinated sugar drink. It's amazing what sugar and caffeine can do for you at
For
the
your
right
spirits,
moment.
yep.
So it can be something really small, but if you lead with love, from a position of love, it's amazing how those seeds will get planted and can help build that relationship.
Awesome. So some great key pointers there. Be honest and specific with people. Tell people they can get through whatever they're fighting through in life. We're all going through different things at any given time, and we don't. Hardly any of us ever just broadcast that and tell people. So just ask good questions, figure out what people have going on, and help them through it. Encourage them at the same time. And when someone's in pain, just giving them your support and your comfort, can mean the world to people. And obviously send words of love, and all that is so great. I guess my last question for you, Kate, would be how soon should you start networking and building relationships with people?
Yesterday. That was what I learned. That was the key lesson I got from going to the Lakeland Business Leaders meetings. If you, no matter what you're doing, but particularly if you're starting a business, mm-hmm. you're thinking about it, the best thing you can do is to get out in the community immediately and start getting to know some other people. Yeah. And there is no safer environment than the Lakeland Business Leaders. I highly recommend that as a great starting point.
Awesome. And so, as some of the people I follow like to say, the bigger your network, the bigger your net worth. And so very, very important key aspects. Never too soon. Again, you can never know when the relationships you build, the people you meet can come in and help you in any situation in life, or you can be of service to them. And doors are always opening. So it's been awesome, Kate. Give us a little bit of your information real quick, phone number, address, where people can get in contact with you if they have any questions.
Yes, you're welcome to come by my office and more anytime if you just want to see. We're in a 100-year-old building in downtown Lakeland. We're at 122 East Main Street. And just come up to the second floor. Happy to show you around. Our phone number is 863-333-5120. Or you can just reach out with an email. I'm at kate@myofficeandandmore.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. I know this has definitely opened my eyes up to a lot and how I can better grow myself and my business and my network, and really connect with people more and bring value to them. And so that, if you're in business, that's ultimately what you're most likely trying to do, is bring value to others, and building relationships is the best way you can do that. So I hope you guys have a great day. Hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.